Welcome back. Today we're going to change the spark plugs on my 2013 F150 with the 5.0 Coyote motor. Let's jump right in. We're going to start on the driver's side first. These are your 4 coil packs, and each of these coils are secured with an 8mm bolt. This one right here is broken. I'll explain how to prevent this from happening later in the video. I'm using a standard ratchet with a 6-inch extension to get these bolts off. So let's get the first one off. And now we can work on the electrical connector at the top of the coil pack. These connectors are pretty fragile, and honestly it's not the best design either. Don't worry if you break any of them, because it's probably going to happen no matter how careful you are. The main goal is to lift up this red tab without pushing it too far out of the way. Then you are technically supposed to push down around this area while pushing the connector towards the coil pack until you feel it unlock. Once it's unlocked, you can pull the connector off. This did not work for me. Instead, I took a pair of pliers and placed it between the connector and the coil pack. Then I pried the connector upwards. This is kind of risky because you could break something, but you may end up breaking the connector even if you do everything right anyway. Ford likes to keep their customers confused. I mean, just look at the new Mustang. Moving on. Let's remove the coil pack now. You can do this without a tool, but I like to use something like this to help me pull the coil pack straight out, preventing me from bending the coil too much when trying to remove it. Again, it's not necessary, but the tool was cheap and it can prevent you from buying a new coil pack. Now let's get that spark plug out of there. Grab a 5/8 socket and fish the socket into the hole with an extension. Once you know the socket is on the plug, grab your ratchet and start loosening the spark plug. When you feel it's loose enough, you can remove the ratchet and check the socket. If the spark plug isn't attached to the socket, then just insert the socket and extension back into the hole and unscrew the plug by hand. It should be loose enough by now that you don't need a ratchet. After a few more turns, check again. And there's the plug. I have this special spark plug extension set that not only has the extension built into the socket, but there's also a magnet on the end to prevent the spark plug from falling off. This helps when removing old plugs and installing new ones. If you want a set like this, I have a link down below, or you can just search spark plug extensions on Amazon. Now before you install the new spark plugs, you want to make sure they are gapped properly. I bought these Motorcraft plugs, and as you can see here, the gap is not adjustable. They also provide you the torque spec, which I usually do around 12 foot-pounds on these Ford engines anyway, and this one says 14.4 pounds max. Let's discuss one more topic before installing the new plug. Some say to use anti-seize, some say don't. Some say you can apply a little dab at the top of the thread and that's it. Others say don't do it at all. Again, that's up to you. Personally, it depends on the engine for me. For my 2013 5.0, I do not use anti-seize. However, that's up to you. Once you add anti-seize, the max you can torque the plug is probably closer to 12 foot-pounds and not 14.4, but this is just my opinion. Let's move on and get that spark plug installed. Insert the plug into the socket and then feed it into the spark plug hole. I know my hand is in the way, but you need to keep the extension as straight as possible when screwing the plugs in. The last thing you want to do is cross thread them. You will see later what I mean by keeping the extension straight. Once the spark plug stops turning by hand, bust out your torque wrench and torque it down between 7.2 and 14.4 foot-pounds. Like I said earlier, I always torque them down to 12 foot-pounds. Done. Now here's another product that you need to pick up. This is Dielectric Grease. This helps prevent corrosion, which also works great on battery terminals, and also helps make a better connection between the spark plug and coil boot. It's also very easy to use. Just take the cap off like this, and then you will flip the cap over. On the other side of the cap, you will notice this pointy thing. You were supposed to use that end to punch a hole in the seal like this. Now I'm going to show you the rookie way to apply this. As you can see, if you just squeeze the tube over the top end of the boot, grease will rest near the end and not go into the boot. You want the grease to go into the hole of the coil boot. Here's a better way to apply the grease. Put the end of the tube directly into the boot and squeeze. This will prevent any mess you could have made. Just make sure it looks like this. You want enough grease to go from side to side. Now pull the electrical connector out of the way and then place the boot into the hole. You will be able to feel when the boot connects with the spark plug. Now connect the electrical connector, and if your red tab isn't broken like mine, push it down to lock it into place. Then you can get that 8mm bolt back in and hand tighten it. You will see me use a torque wrench here, but honestly this is overkill. These bolts call for around 5 foot-pounds, which is practically nothing. Just make sure they are snug and you will have no problems. Let's move on to the second spark plug. This time I'm going to move a little quicker since it's the same process. Remove the 8mm bolt, disconnect the electrical connector, remove the coil pack. Oh, and another thing. Make sure you clean up any debris. Try to clean it before removing the coil pack to prevent it from falling into the spark plug hole. Now get that special extension and get that old spark plug out of there. That spark plug looks pretty good, doesn't it? Well, let's compare it to a new one. This device checks the performance of your spark plugs. Just insert the new and old spark plug and then twist the knob to turn it on. Although the old plug is still in really good shape, you can definitely tell it's weaker than a new one, which was expected considering these plugs have around 90,000 miles on them. This device can actually help you troubleshoot if your engine is misfiring. The link is in the description if you want to check it out. Let's get the new spark plug installed. Insert the plug into your extension. Put the extension in the hole. Make sure you keep the extension straight with the walls of the spark plug bore to prevent cross threading. Once you get it hand tight, grab your torque wrench and tighten it down to 12 foot-pounds. Then grab your boot and grease, put the end of the grease into the boot, squeeze a little bit to make your boot cover like this, reinstall the boot, attach the electrical connector, then install your 8mm bolt. Now number 2 is finished, so let's move on to number 3. Now I am missing one bolt right here. These bolts are famous for breaking and I experienced it firsthand. The problem is water gets around the bolt and rusts them out. So once you try to remove it, it can break. If you want to learn how to prevent this from happening in your truck, watch the video all the way through until the end. Since the bolt is broken, skip that step and move right onto the electrical connector. Disconnect it and remove the bolt. Oh, and one more thing to mention. After removing the bolt, check the condition of it. If it is too dirty, clean it off with a rag. If there is a crack, you may want to consider replacing it. Alright, and just like before, remove the plug and then install the new one. Torque it down to 12 foot-pounds. Grab your boot, insert your grease, squeeze, insert your boot. Finally, connect your electrical connector, and that's it for this one. Don't worry about the boot coming out. Later in the video I will show you what I use to keep the boot in place, and it also makes everything look cooler too. Let's move on to the last spark plug on the driver's side. Things get a little tight the farther back you go, so I'm going to swap out the 6-inch extension for a 3-inch extension. This will give you ample clearance to get that 8mm bolt off. This is the same process. Remove the bolt, disconnect the electrical connector, remove the boot, remove any dirt or debris like you see here, grab your extension and remove the old plug. Insert the new plug into your extension, torque it down to 12 foot-pounds, apply dielectric grease to the boot before putting it back into the spark plug hole, reconnect your electrical connector, and finally, hand tighten the coil pack bolt, or torque it down to 5 foot-pounds if you want to. That's it for the driver's side. Let's move on to the passenger side. Instead of doing one spark plug at a time, I'm going to do them all at the same time for this side. It doesn't matter if you mix up the coil pack, so don't worry about that. First, remove all 4 coil pack bolts. Next, remove all the electrical connectors so you can get the coils out of there. Now you can remove all 4 coil packs. Let's get those spark plugs out of there. There's one. There's 2. There's 3. And there's number 4. Now you can grab your last 4 spark plugs and torque them down to 12 foot-pounds. There's 1. There's 2. There's 3. And number 4 is done. Let's get those coil packs filled with grease and then inserted back into the spark plug holes. There's 1. And you can reconnect the electrical connector right after getting it back onto the top of the spark plug like I am right here. There's 2. Number 3 is now done. And there's 4. And now all we have left is getting all 4 coil pack bolts installed and we are done. Alright, now that all of the spark plugs are installed, let's talk about these coil pack bolts. There are a couple things that I did to prevent them from rusting out. The first was adding anti-seize to the threads of the bolts. I did not add them in the beginning of this video because my bolts still had a good amount of anti-seize on them from the last time I applied it. You don't necessarily have to coat the threads like I did, just make sure you get some around the threads that are right underneath the head of the bolt. This will prevent water from seeping down into the threads. The second thing you want to do is paint the bolt heads. There's a special paint marker you can buy from Amazon to coat the bolt heads and prevent them from rusting out. It's very easy to apply, as you can see right here. And finally, the last thing you can do is to make your engine look like the Mustang's. Let me explain. Ford, in their infinite wisdom, decided not to give us Coyote F150 owners the coil covers that came standard on the Mustang GT. I guess they needed to save an extra 3 cents per truck. The problem with this is obvious. Now the coil pack bolts rust out because they are not covered. So, I found these on Amazon and installed them in under 5 minutes. Ford can be really aggravating at times. If you want to check out those videos in their entirety, I have them linked in the description below. That's all there is to it. If you found any part of this video helpful or entertaining, please give it a thumbs up. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button as well as the notification bell so you don't miss a video from our channel. Thanks for watching and we'll see you on the next one.